Hi folks, welcome back to the Edupedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. And today again we are continuing with the Professional Ethics by the CA Act 1949. So we are on the verge of completing the clause number 7 of the part 1 of the first schedule, right? Some of you who must be thinking that this chapter is going a little long, please stay tuned, right? This consists of 20% of your syllabus as compared to the marks allotted in the examination. You know that, you're aware of it, right? So with the closure of this chapter, you will have closed 20% of the syllabus. Number 1, right? We have done majority of the standards. With that, we have closed already around 40% of the syllabus, right? Now you need to understand one thing, that over here 16 marks, what you get, 16 to 20 marks question from professional ethics, you can score full marks. This is the only place in your entire syllabus for your examination where you can score 100% marks. If you have the correct clause number, correct clause text written over there, correct reasoning, correct logics, and correct facts, you get the full marks. It's just a pattern of how you write the answers. I'll share it to you before your examinations, don't worry. We'll take an independent class on how to face audit examination and how to write your answers and stuff, right? So over there we'll be discussing all those things, don't worry. And as I told you, the first schedule, or the first and second schedule, part 1 of both the schedules are only the lengthy part, and part 1 of the first schedule is the lengthiest, right? And we have almost crossed half the way. That means we have almost crossed 40% of the chapter, right? Rest is just a cakewalk. So today we'll be completing the clause number 7, right? So let us start with it. And as I told you in the previous lecture, that we have just 1 or 2 guidelines and rest of the case studies that is provided by the institute that we need to discuss in the lecture today. So first we start with the council's guidelines. So for use of the word like associates of, correspondence of, etc. on letterhead, visiting card, etc. So you have a guideline for use of these words. Now understand, being a chartered accountant and being in practice, you will come across various associations that the senior chartered accountants they prepare, right? Association of anything, association of chartered accountants, association of whatever, right? Whatever name association you have. Now you being a chartered accountant again and trying to build a network, what you do is you get attached to that association. Well and good, no problem with that, right? So being a part of any association is very much allowed by the council. It has to be an association of chartered accountants, but right, you just cannot randomly get into any association with the designation of chartered accountants over there. So irrespective of what firm you are, an Indian firm or an international firm, right, or a foreign firm, not an international, just a foreign firm, and you being a part of any association, it is all good with the institute. But as the guideline says, it is for the use of the words in association with, associates of, correspondence of whatever, associates of whatever, in association with whatever, right? These are some typical words that you should not be mentioning on your business stationery. And when we say business stationery, we directly refer to your letterheads, your visiting cards, and the other stuff, right? So when you are preparing your letterhead, when you are preparing your visiting cards, just write your name, your firm's name, the chartered accountant designation and stuff, right? Your contact numbers, details and everything, address. But tell me, what is the point of writing in association with something else also? Will your audit be impacted? Will your tax consultancy be impacted? Or will any of such things be impacted? Virtually no. In your working, in your performance, nothing will be impacted. So why do you demonstrate it? Just because you want to show that you have an upper edge than the other chartered accountants firm in the market. Why? Because you work in association with something. What is that? That, my dear friend, is an advertisement, right? So the institute has provided a clear-cut guidelines that on your business stationeries, letterheads, visiting cards, you are not going to mention in association with anything, right? So please avoid these kinds of words, in association with, or your associates of, or correspondents of anything, right? Avoid these words. These will not be allowed as per the clause 7, right? Let us not stretch on that. I hope the point that I wanted to make through is through, right? Next, use of logos. Now this is one point of discussion. Now remember when we were discussing the clause number 6, soliciting client, right? And there we had a point about website, point number 13 or something, right? Website. So in the website, what we observed is that you are not supposed to put up your logo. If at all you want a logo on your website, use the logo of ICAI, right? Aish Sapteshu Jagran. That is our logo, that is our motto. You can use that logo, no problem with that, right? Now over there, if you remember, then I told you that having logos for chartered accountants firm are prohibited. Yes, you remember, it is prohibited. And I said that this was announced in February 1988, right? Long back, 1998, sorry, long back. It's about to be, it's 18 years now, it's about to be 20 years to it. So since then, logos have been prohibited. So you cannot use logos anywhere. You cannot have a logo for yourself actually, right? But what was the scenario before that? Prior to that, people used to use logo. The chartered accountants firm, the chartered accountants in practice, right? They used to have logos for themselves. Now that logo, it was not a standard or standardized logo all around. People would have any kinds of fancy logos depicting any damn thing. Nobody cares, right? Then the institute thought that this is going haywire. I don't know what is happening, but people are coming up with weird kinds of logos. So what did the institute decide? In 1995, the institute said that you are not supposed to use any other logo. Now what is the logo supposed to use? Something that is prepared by the initial of your firm name or your proprietorship name. You can use your initials as your logo. That is what was allowed. So anything other than those initials were prohibited. But now, even with the initials, you could make any design. So what did these people, these practitioners do? They either out of their own creativity or by engineered force on it, they tried to find out and they got registered some names, right? Some intentional names for their firms, so that the logo that they already have in mind can be prepared with the initials, or identical logo could be prepared with the initials. So the name of the firm were basically driven by the kind of logos you want. That was the practice that started. And the art behind selecting that name was remarkable, right? So the institute thought this is not a solution. And we cannot have strict guidelines for that, right? How do we define what kinds of logo you want? Logos are artistic, right? It can be of any shape, any size. So finally in December 1997, they decided that we are not supposed to have any logos, right? And so the same decision was given out in February 1998 that logos are prohibited for the CA forms. And that was basically done, right? Because institute came across certain registration of the firm's name which was not in line with the regulation 190 of the Chartered Accountant Regulation 1988, right? Because of the logo, people started creating such unique names, and those names, they did not fall into the parameters, right? They got up with lot of permutation combination in themselves, got it engineered, right, and got those names approved just because they wanted that specific kind of a logo, right? But now since institute wanted that compliance with the regulation, right? Then there was a meeting held in December 1997, and then they decided that the use of logo or monogram of any kind, any style, design, form, color, whatever, right, that has to be prohibited. The use of those logo on the stationery, on any document, on your visiting cards, on letterheads, anywhere, any magnetic device, on websites, internet, all of there, it has to be prohibited, right? And they also prohibited the use of the firm name in any other manner that would at any point of time relate to any logo or monogram, right? So that is the entire structure behind why was logo prohibited. Now basically I understand the story was not very important for you, right? Some students might be thinking, why the story behind? Okay, the logo is prohibited today, it's prohibited, that's it. But my dear friends, try and understand from a teacher's point of view. My task is not just to get the text communicated to you, right? The reason why we have these displays of the text on the screen and then a slow and a loud dictation behind is that it seeps into your brain and goes through all the sense organs, right? Now since you know a story behind, you will always remember that the logo is prohibited. Just a mere statement, logo is prohibited, would definitely go into your brain, but recalling it, like your unconscious brain has a lot of information inside, right? Recalling just one small statement that the logo is prohibited is very difficult. But recalling a story for which you have created an imagery, is an easy task, right? So if it is helpful or it is burdensome, whatever it goes, please let me know in the comment box below. If you don't want such connections, we can be teaching straightforward, and if you want me to continue with more of these, I'll come up with more, right? So for the time being, so that was all about the council's guidelines, right? That was all. Now the next thing that we need to discuss would be the decisions of the council or the High Court, right? Now the first decision that we need to check is, somebody used the designation Incorporated Accountant London and Registered Accountant India. That means, yeah, my firm was incorporated in London, but it is registered in India. That is the message they want to communicate. Now tell me, what is the point of communicating such a message? Why do you want to flaunt that, yeah, I was registered in London? Dude, this is CA, Chartered Accountants, right? Indian Chartered Accountancy is the toughest. It is CPA over there in US, right? So when you talk about an Indian profession, we want a standardized concept over there. So when we allow you to use a designation, we have always allowed you to use the designation Chartered Accountant. If you are a Chartered Accountant, you cannot use any other designation. That is something we had specified already. Now what is the intention of portraying that, yeah, the firm was incorporated in London? For mere advertisement, so that there is a buzz created in the market. Hey, you heard about this firm? It was incorporated in London. They must have come up with some huge like some very different concepts of working, man. I think they're very much organized and stuff. That is the kind of buzz they want to create in the market, right? So what does that mean? That directly tends to advertisement. And you know what, in this decision, right, in this case of Mirza M. Hussain, actually, this was the first fault they made using that designation. And then when they were flaunting so much that we are from UK, right, they made a mistake in the filing of balance sheet as well, right? They failed to report to the shareholders in the prescribed form under the Banking Companies Act. They did not do it at all. So in this case, they actually had two charges. One for using the wrong designation, and the second for not issuing the balance sheet in the required format. Somebody who was flaunting is not actually able to follow the guidelines also. So that was one case, the case of Mirza M. Hussain, back in 1955, long back, right? That time a company or a firm being incorporated in London was a very big deal. How many of the people have been to London at that point of time? Now it's a casual thing. Every now and then people plan a trip to Europe, but earlier that was not the case, right? So letter to government department showing seniority. So this man, this great chartered accountant, what he did, he wrote several letters to the government department, right, pointing out that, listen, I am a very senior firm. I have been established long back, right? And then he started sending sketch of his entire life cycle, his glorious records that he has done, the clientele that he has served and everything, right? That yeah, he has served the country, he has served the organization with his valuable services and all. These are the kinds of extravagant words that were used in that letter, right? But what was that letter for? Now if you think about the intention behind the letter, then the letter was clearly tending to advertise his professional attainments, right? So he was found guilty. Under this clause, he was found guilty, and whatever penalties are attached, that was attached to him, right? And if you want to relate to the name, it was Sridhar P.S. Sodbans. The case, right? The case was actually related to them. I'm just giving that name. Those names are not very important. If they had been important, I would have mentioned it on the screen as well, right? Because I want you to remember it, and then I would have focused on the name and taken it through your brain. But it's not important, just for the curiosity term, and so that you know that yeah, there's a case like that, I'm using the names, right? The next case, offering concession. Oh my god, yeah, there was this chartered accountant, right, N.O. Abraham. So what they did, N.O. Abraham was the initial, actually it is N.O. Abraham Isaac Raj. So what they did is, they issued back-to-back 2 insertions in the institute journal, right? And in that journal they wrote, they published that, listen, we are giving you certain services at a concessional rate. We are willing to provide certain services at concessional rate. They did that, right? But yeah, that was not the institute journal that you get actually. That was a journal which was published by the Chamber of Commerce, not the institute journal, sorry. So in the journal published by the Chamber of Commerce, these chartered accountants, what they did is they expressed their willingness to give concession for the services. That is again an advertisement. That is a way of soliciting clients. So he was not just guilty of one clause number 7, he was also guilty of clause number 6, because this is not merely a direct advertisement. It's a write-up, right, in the journal. But then he is trying to solicit clients by offering discounts. That tends to clause number 6. But how did he do it? He did it by print media, that is advertisement. So it is again under clause number 7 as well, right? Then the last case that we have is the letter to MD for audit purpose, right? So what happened is, one chartered accountant, which was Mr. Yogesh Gupta, he addressed a letter to the managing director of a company and said, listen, I am offering you my services. I am a practicing chartered accountant, right? So these are the services I provide. I am an expert on this. I would like if you would give me your audit. But the way he has written the letter, it was so generalized that the MD also understood that I am not the only one to whom he is sending the letter. It is a general letter, would fit into any circumstance and any situation and to any reader, right? So he knows that yeah, this man has been sending this letter to across all organizations and for the same purpose of soliciting clients. So he was held guilty under 6 and 7 both, right? So these are the 4 cases that is given by the institute. And you know what, if you people go through the practice manuals, right, the questions or the questions that have appeared in the past examinations, after I finish the classes, you will notice that the questions that they have asked are basically based on these case studies. The letter of government department showing seniority. This is a very recent case coming in, I think 2015, May or November something. This case was there in the question paper, right? That is how it goes, right? So these case studies that I share, right, we will also be repeating it again when we are doing the practice manual. When I say practice manual, that means after completion of this chapter, we will take over the questions from this chapter. I will discuss all the questions with you. Again, why? Because this is one of the most important chapter, right? But before the questions, maybe I'll take up another chapter, the bank audit, because some students had requested for completion of the bank audit chapter. So maybe after this chapter, we'll do the bank audit and then we'll go back to the questions. Or whatever it is, it depends upon the situation, right? By the end of the chapter, the situation will change. So whatever you want, if you want the questions to be discussed or you want bank audit to be discussed, share it in the comment below, right? As per the majority, I'll do it. I don't have a problem with that. So I hope with this you're clear with all the council guidelines and all the cases. Remember, the name of the case is not important, but the decision of the court is, right? And you also need to link as to which clause does it refer to. Somewhere it was just clause 7, and the last two cases it was clause 7 and 6 both. So learn how to relate it, right? I will also try making these relations comfortable for you when we are discussing the question answers. Okay, so that will be all for clause number 7, and in the next class we'll start with clause number 8, right? So this is another clause coming to an end, another big clause. Clause number 8 also is not very small, not very huge as well. It is somewhere close to the length of clause number 7, right? So we'll do that we'll start that in the next lecture. Until then, this is Abhinay Gupta signing off, taking a leave. See you guys back in the next lecture. Thank you and bye-bye.